If you've ever been to a big city like New York or Los Angeles, you know that most of the streets are in a pattern that looks like a grid. They're very neat and orderly, with the exception of a few cities like Boston, so the streets are easy to navigate and find where you want to go. Burnout Paradise is not like that at all. It takes place in a fictional town called Paradise City. It's an open world racing game where you can drive around finding events to participate in, billboards to drive through, huge jumps, and plenty of other things throughout the city. Because it's open world, it has to be in a pretty big city, but it's not always super easy to get from point A to point B. In other words, driving from one location to another is not nearly as streamlined as it might be in a big city in real life. It might seem like the roads are badly designed at a glance, but the way they're organized is very intentional. The core of Burnout Paradise is not about efficiency and movement. It's not like a real city where you mainly want to go somewhere specific. The lack of a grid in most of the roads makes for more interesting driving in the game. And ultimately, how interesting it is to just drive around is the single most important part of the game. It's what the players are going to be doing most of the time, just driving aimlessly. Having roads that curve around all over the place, one-way streets in strange places, and unfinished sections of road make moving around the city much more fun. You might not know exactly where you are, but that makes you more likely to discover interesting things in the world. Parts of it are designed to encourage you to go off the beaten path a bit. If the city wasn't a perfectly organized grid, it would lose a lot of that. Turns would be harder at high speeds for one thing. Even though most people in the city are driving at around 40 miles an hour, the roads are really designed for cars going much faster than that. The roads have gradual turns, and you can see a turn coming up ahead of time generally to let you react to it. Even though you might get lost occasionally, the city is really not all that big compared to most open world games. You're never too far from where you might want to go anyway. But Burnout isn't just about driving around aimlessly. It has different events scattered throughout the map, and the positioning of the roads makes these events more interesting also. It makes races far more strategic. Most racing games have one path that everyone follows. It might have one or two shortcuts, but in general, everyone is following the same path. In Burnout, you can choose your own path. It has a compass to make sure you generally go the right direction, but the exact roads you take are up to you. If you follow those side paths, you can sometimes find a new route that's faster than everyone else's. And even if your way is slower, it's still fun to take side roads and see what's there. It's just as interesting as trying to win the race. Races have no penalty for losing, so you're encouraged to explore your own routes throughout the city. And Burnout is packed with stuff to do, so any roads you go down will probably be interesting. Another event type in the game is called Marked Man. You have to get from one point to another before getting taken down 3 times by other cars trying to wreck yours. Like in races, going down side paths can be helpful in this mode. If a car is right next to you trying to ram you into a wall, you can quickly dodge down another road to get away. The windy roads and side paths are definitely to your advantage in this mode. Again, efficiency in traveling to one specific point, even if it is your end goal, isn't the most important part. You have to avoid as many enemies as possible, and that is much easier with weirdly shaped roads than it would be if you had to go in a straight line with them on your tail. Sometimes, being less realistic is good for a video game, especially for a ridiculous over-the-top racing game like Burnout Paradise. The roads might not really make sense, but they make the game so much better. If you like this episode and want to see more, don't forget to subscribe, and thank you for watching this episode of Breakdown.